Ambassador Nicolas de Riviera, France permanent representative to the United Nations. Welcome, sir.
Good to be with you, Talal. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure and honor. It was announced that the French President Emmanuel Macron is visiting the region tomorrow, Tuesday. Can you tell us more about this visit and the objective from this visit?
Well, Talal, the situation in Gaza and around Gaza is very bad. It's a disaster. So since the attack against Israel on October 7, President Macron has been mobilized, working day and night to contribute to a solution, interacting with all leaders in the region, starting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, the president of the Palestinian Authority, president of Egypt, everyone. So now it's time for him to go there to do two things, basically. First, to express our full solidarity with the people of Israel, which have been attacked by Hamas, which is a terrorist attack. And it needs to be condemned again and again. The issue needs to be addressed. So we stand with Israel. Israel has the right to defend itself. So that's one. And the second objective, of course, is to make sure that the civilian population of Gaza will not suffer the consequences of this situation. The civilians of Gaza are, to a certain extent, the victim of Hamas as well. Because of this attack, we found ourselves in this situation. Now, we need to make sure that whatever happens in Gaza now, intervention by Israel, which is legitimate when it's targeting the terrorists, is not violating the Geneva Convention. So we need a full respect of the international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. But we need also the release of all hostages. This is absolutely a necessity, and we need full humanitarian access to Gaza. There are huge needs right now. There are many efforts going on by the UN, by the US, by France, by the European Union. So everybody is mobilized to try to improve humanitarian access to Gaza and to address the needs of the civilian population. But we need to protect the civilians in Gaza. They don't need to be a collateral damage of this very tragic crisis.
The French Foreign Minister, Catherine Colonna, she is coming tonight, I understand, to New York to take part in the meeting in the Middle East and the Gaza war in the Security Council tomorrow. She said in Cairo in the latest summit, peace summit last Saturday, she said that a humanitarian corridor, and I'm quoting her, is needed and may lead to a ceasefire. As you see the situation now, do you think a ceasefire is likely to be there in the short term?
Talal, as I just said, what we need right now, and it's a matter of emergency, we need humanitarian access. So this is why France has been pushing again and again in the Security Council, everywhere, to have a so-called humanitarian pause, to make sure that trucks with food, water, whatever can access and can be available to the people of Gaza. So we need more of that. There are convoys going through Rafah, the border point between Gaza and Egypt. It's far from enough. We need much more. So we need a humanitarian pause. As Catherine Colonna said, we need humanitarian corridors. We need much more humanitarian deliveries to the people of Gaza. At a certain stage, and we hope rather sooner than later, a ceasefire can take place, and it will facilitate the situation as well.
Yeah. Do you know the U.S. draft resolution presented to the members of the Security Council now include an actual humanitarian pause that you are asking for, or even a ceasefire at a later stage?
Yeah, I think there is a proposal in the last draft to include a humanitarian pause, which is absolutely necessary. It was already there in a draft presented by Brazil a few days
before.
ago, which unfortunately was not adopted. But now I think I really hope that the Security Council can make a decision soon on this issue. There is no contradiction between condemning the terrorist attack by Hamas, which again is unprecedented, should be condemned, and the terrorists should be fought. I think it's a necessity. I think it's a threat. France has always been advocating for the security of Israel. And on the other hand, full humanitarian access, which is a matter of emergency, full respect of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions, release of the hostages, which is another emergency. So these are two dimensions which are absolutely not in contradiction, and France will continue to ask for both.
The French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne today said in Paris that there are no victims that we should cry for less than other victims, and there is no life that is less in value than another life. And she called for the humanitarian truce. She didn't say pause, humanitarian truce, saying that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Your comment?
Well, I couldn't agree more with my Prime Minister, Madame Borne. All lives are equal. We should avoid more casualties. We should protect civilians' lives. A number of Israeli civilians have been killed on October 7. It should be condemned. We should avoid casualties and civilian casualties on the Palestinian side, the population of Gaza. It's essential. I think we should just work to get there. And we need, again, this humanitarian pause or truth. I think it's what we need, basically, call it, you can call it whatever you like. I think what we need is humanitarian access to Gaza and humanitarian goods in a large quantity delivered to the people of Gaza because they need it.
Without easing the bombardment, because it's contradictory to give the people on one hand aid and humanitarian assistance, and on the other hand you are bombing the civilians establishment, the civilians infrastructure, the homes. 30%, according to the UN, of the homes of the Gazans have been destroyed.
Yeah, Talal, again, what France is urging for is full respect of international humanitarian law, respect of the quote-unquote law of the war, the Geneva Conventions. I think Israel has a legitimate right to go after the terrorists, the group Hamas, the individuals. I think this being said, civilian population and civilian homes and infrastructures should be respected.
I must say that, and allude to what you said on the 18th of October yourself, and you said the Palestinian people are victims of Hamas, and the protection of civilians is of the utmost importance. These are your words. Now in Gaza, there is 1 million people are now displaced, and 500,000 of them are sheltering in establishment and schools of UNRWA and the United Nations. There is no safe place in Gaza. Even the south, last night there were heavy bombardments of the south, where Israel is telling people to evacuate, to go to the south for safety. So, and of course I need to add that 500 to 600 American citizens, mostly of Arab origin, American citizens, are trapped in Gaza. They cannot leave, and the bombardment is heavy on them, while in the same time we are calling for more humanitarian aid through Rafah. Isn't it high time for the Security Council to act and to allow for humanitarian aid to enter and be distributed in a peaceful environment?
Yes, Talal, I agree with that. I think it's high time for the Security Council to take action. I think we already tried twice to make decisions. We failed twice, so we cannot afford to fail a third time. So I hope next time, and rather sooner than later, we will make decisions. The United Nations are doing a good job. I think the Secretary General, all the humanitarian agencies are doing their utmost to increase their effort to help the people of Gaza, which is good. We support them. France has increased its contributions $10 million to UNRWA. UNRWA is a great humanitarian agency. They need to be supported. They need more money to do this job. So whatever can be done to provide more resources and more access to the UN agencies is needed, and it's urgent. We need more access. We need a humanitarian pause. You can call it a humanitarian truth. Right now, I hope the Security Council can ask for this soon as well, and we need the help to get to the people. And again, it should be done in a safe manner. The humanitarian deliveries should be organized and not jeopardized. And we need the Geneva Convention and the law of the war to be fully implemented and civilians respected. This is absolutely essential. France will continue to ask for that.
In the Cairo Peace Summit, the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, criticized the global silence on Palestinian suffering, accusing the international community of prioritizing Israeli lives over Palestinian lives. The US and Western countries have all understandably condemned the Hamas attack on the 7th of October and stressed the pain and suffering of the Israeli people caused by Hamas, which is designated by the United States and the United Kingdom as a terrorist organization. But they have not condemned the pain and suffering brought upon the Palestinian people, the civilians of Gaza, by the Israeli heavy bombing of civilians and civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, churches, mosques. Neither did they condemn the violence of the settlers. The Israeli settlers, have so far killed more than 80 Palestinians in the West Bank. They have displaced 13 Palestinian community from their homes and where they live so far. Why is this double standards as seen by the Arab people?
The situation in Gaza, around Gaza, in the West Bank, etc., is a tragedy right now. It's obvious. All civilians must be protected, whether they are Israeli or Israeli Jews, or whether they are Palestinians from Gaza or from the West Bank. I think all lives are equal. This is what President Macron has been repeating. As you just said, this is what the French Prime Minister just said in front of the French Parliament. So we make no distinctions. We condemn all attacks against all civilians, period. There is no double standard at all. We will continue to ask for this. There is an emergency which is bringing things back on track, cessation of violence, humanitarian access, and we need to work tirelessly on this one. Once the fire is under control, I hope rather sooner than later, we will have to ask ourselves, what should we do to address the political reasons, the political framework of this crisis. France is firmly convinced that we should get back to the negotiation table, work on the two-state solution, and do our best to have, a Palestinian state living side by side with Israel. This is probably the safest solution to avoid a repetition of this crisis again and again.
I would like to move to Hezbollah and Iran. Has France been sending messages and signals to Hezbollah in Lebanon, in the south, and to Iran not to stay out of the conflict that's taking place in Gaza now, because the rhythm and the drums of war are increasingly heard in the south of Lebanon?
Well, I think it's a good question, Talal. The last thing we want is to see this crisis propagating in the West Bank and in the north of Israel and the south of Lebanon. So I think we need to contain this crisis. We need to fix the situation in Gaza. We need to avoid any violence in the West Bank, and we certainly need to avoid an implication of Lebanon and Hezbollah, as you said, in a crisis. So France has been active on day one to avoid the opening of a new front in the north. We spoke to all Lebanese stakeholders, including...
What are they telling you?
They say that they would not join the war if the situation keeps calm. But we will continue to urge them not to escalate. We need to avoid an escalation at the border between Israel and Lebanon. It's absolutely essential.
Would they stay calm after the ground invasion of Israel to Gaza?
I think they should, because...
no, they should, but would they?
Yeah. I think it will be a big mistake to have another front open in the north. I think it will just bring more victims, more destructions, so it needs to be avoided. I hope that UNIFIL, which is the UN PKO deployed in this region in the southern part of Lebanon since 1978, can continue to contribute to appeasement in this area. It's absolutely essential. No one wants to see another front in the south of Lebanon and the north of Israel. It will be a disaster.
President Biden has asked the Israelis to delay the land operation into Gaza to give time for negotiations to release the hostages. You have hostages in Gaza. You have missing French citizens, regardless of their origin. You support the delay and the call by President Biden to delay the ground invasion?
Talal, I just want to remind you that France has been, of course, directly affected by this crisis. We already lost 30 French citizens killed at the beginning of this crisis. We have hostages. We are working hard with different partners to try to have these hostages released. And I think we hope that they can be released soon. But I will not make comments on the timing and the approach. I think it has to be addressed in a discreet manner. And we really hope that we can make progress on this one. But it's a priority for the French president. It's a priority for France, of course.
Does France see any possibilities, any chance for de-escalations and avoiding ground invasion of Gaza?
I think we should make sure that, again, that the civilians are protected. We are not asking Israel to refrain to go after the terrorists. I think that's a legitimate right of Israel.
At any cost?
Not at any cost. I told you before, not at any cost. I think with full respect of the Geneva Convention, but going after the terrorists is a legitimate goal.
In France yesterday, for the first time, there were pro-Palestinian demonstrations. The organizers say about 30,000 demonstrators came out. The police say about 15,000. Regardless, it's in tens of thousands of people. And that's after the French government has banned them. On the 12th of October, the police has stopped a demonstration in Paris with water cannons and etc. Now that the highest court, France top administrative court, which is the Council of State, has stated that that ban is not legal and the demonstration has taken place. Do you think the French government was wrong to try to stifle the voices of pro-Palestinians in Paris and France as a whole, and to deprive them from the freedom of speech they rightly deserve?
I want to be very clear, Talal. France is a free country. All opinions are authorized. We have the freedom of demonstrations for everyone. And there was never a quote-unquote ban on Palestinian demonstration. There was just the fear at the beginning of the crisis that some of this demonstration would create security troubles. And the Conseil d'État, the Council of the State, as you said, didn't say that the government was wrong. The Conseil d'État basically explained that...
But it reversed it.
No, it explained that it should be decided on a case-by-case according to the security implication of each of these demonstrations. So we always authorize demonstrations and we make sure that it's safe. And I think, as you rightly said, there were demonstrations yesterday, pro-Palestinian demonstration, both in Paris and in Marseille, and there may be others. But the bottom line is you have the right to demonstrate, but you don't have the right to jeopardize public order, and it needs to be safe for the citizens. So in the beginning, it was not sure it would be safe. No, I think it has to be safe.
Time is catching up with us. I'd like to come to the subject, what comes after the war in Gaza? Are you, France and your allies, discussing what is in the aftermath of the war? What is the plan for Gaza? Is it another Israeli occupation of Gaza, or are you going to let the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, enter Gaza on the nozzle of Israeli cannons and guns to rule and run Gaza? What we need to know, what is the final plan for Gaza?
Well, Talal, the priority now, of course, is to extinguish this fire. There is a crisis, we need to resolve it, but I think you're right, this conversation on the mid and long-term solution should take place. The reality...
It hasn't taken place yet?
It should take place as soon as this crisis is over. Let me tell you, we have no Middle East peace process since 2014. And because of that, we go from one crisis to the other. And if we do not relaunch soon a credible Middle East peace process, we will have another crisis, and we will just be in a business of extinguishing fire once after the other, which is a disaster. It's a wrong approach. So we need to get back to the negotiation table with parties, Israelis, the Palestinians, the regional stakeholders, others, to make sure that we work on a two-state solution. We cannot address the Palestinian issue as a non-issue. I think there have been many efforts in the last years to help normalizing the situation between Israel and the Arab world, which is good. There have been many other efforts in terms of trade agreements, etc., which is good. But the Palestinian issue cannot be, to a certain degree, the collateral damage of this normalization. It should be a priority. It should be an issue in itself. And as long as it's not addressed properly, according to the many decisions taken by the Security Council in the past, the two-state solution, everything can be negotiated among the parties. But we need to get back to that. Otherwise, after this crisis, there will be another one, and another one.
Ambassador Nicolas de Rivera, we thank you for this exclusive, and we thank you for your insight, and wish you all the very best of luck.
Thank you, Talal.
Thank you, sir.